about 2 hours, I think. Yes, I'm going to have my phone so I can interact with the people on YouTube Live. So let me just get that up. Bear with me again. PTE should be saying live stream now. About 2 hours, I think. Okay, turn that off. Okay, we're on YouTube Live. Nice, there we are. It's like me there, me there, me there, and me there. It's kind of weird. Nice. All right, so we're running on YouTube Live. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Let's just see if this works. Beautiful. Cool. I think it's all good. Thanks for coming along. My name's Jay. I'm one of the expert PTE teachers here at E2 Language. If you don't know what E2 Language is, well, you should sign up for free. Maybe after this mini mock test, you can go to e2language.com, make a free account and use some of our practice materials, watch our methods. If you upgrade, you can take tutorials, have your study plan. You can watch all of the methods lessons, live classes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. Lots and lots of stuff to do at e2language.com. Right, today we're going to do a mini mock test. Just let me move this little thing off the screen. More specifically, what we're going to do is one question from each of the PTE tasks. So we're going to do 20 questions. There are in fact 20 tasks. On test day, each task has more than one question. So for repeat sentence, for example, you get, I forget, you get like 4 or 5, for example. For describe image, you get like 4 or 5. We're just going to do one from each task. So you'll have a good understanding of what each task is. I'm going to describe it to you. Then you're going to have a chance to practice. Then I'm going to show you the answers or the answer or my answer. Okay. So it should definitely equip you and be good practice. Now, the questions you're about to see will be the same level of difficulty as the actual PTE. As I said, we'll do instruction, scoring, and answers as we go. Let's start with PTE speaking. We're going to start with read aloud. This is the first task of the PTE. What do you have to do? So what will happen is a text appears on the screen. You need to read the text aloud. It's pretty simple. Now, you'll have 30 to 40 seconds to prepare to speak. So in other words, you can read through it once. Then you will actually be recorded and you'll have 30 to 40 seconds to speak, to read it aloud as clearly and as, properly, I guess, as you can. Let's do it. You ready? Oh, no, you're not. Scoring. You scored on content. That is that you read the words correctly. You don't add any words. You don't miss any words. You don't change any words. You're scored on your pronunciation and you're scored against what a native speaker sounds like. Okay. So if you do have a strong accent, you're going to have to try and neutralize that accent. Okay. If you're saying particular sounds in your first language as they would be said, but not in English, you will be penalized. For example, v and w is a big difference. P and b is a big difference. And you're also scored on oral fluency. That is the rate at which you speak. If you speak without hesitation, without umming and ahhing, etc. Here we go. You have 35 seconds to read through this. Congratulations, you have just done the first task of the PTE. I'm just going to turn the chat off in Zoom. A couple of things. First of all, somebody likes my shirt, which is nice. Okay, I'm going to turn the chat off in Zoom so you can't see the chat popping up. Second thing is, for those of you in the Zoom webinar, if your screen is blurry, you'll need to watch this on YouTube Live. Just let me quickly pop in the YouTube Live link into the chat here. Okay, I've just put the YouTube Live link into the chat. I'll say it one more time. If your screen looks blurry and it's weird, go to YouTube Live to watch this because it will be nice and clear. Cool. All right, let me give you an example of how I would read this. So I haven't read through it once, but I'll just see how I go. Here's an answer. Thermoelectric devices which can generate power when one side of the device is a different temperature from the other have been the subject of much research in recent years. Now, a team at MIT has come up with a novel way to convert temperature fluctuations into electrical power. Instead of requiring two different temperature inputs at the same time, the new system takes advantage of the swings in ambient temperature that occur during the day-night cycle. There you go. And then I would click next and I would move on and do the next one. Let's go on to repeat sentence. What's the task? Well, after listening to a recording of a sentence, a single sentence, you need to repeat that single sentence. You're scored on content. You get the sentence right, the correct words in the correct order. You're scored on pronunciation and oral fluency. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
I work with a bunch of mathematicians, philosophers, and computer scientists.
Rock and roll. What's the answer? The answer is...
I work with a bunch of mathematicians, philosophers, and computer scientists.
Except it should say philosophers. My apologies. I wrote that. It should say philosophers, plural. Plural. I work with a bunch of mathematicians, philosophers, and computer scientists. So if you got all of those words in that correct order, you'll get 100%. If you missed a few words, you might get like whatever, 93%, something like that. So it's partial scoring. Describe image. This is the third speaking task of the PTE. What's the task? Well, an image appears on the screen, usually some sort of graph, a pie chart, a line graph, something like that. It may also be 2 flags. It may be something else. You need to describe the image. Well, it says in detail, but I don't know about that. You have 25 seconds to prepare to speak, and then you have 40 seconds to describe the image. Again, you're scored on content, pronunciation, and oral fluency. I'm going to give you a particularly hard one today because one of our E2 language students, hello, Zach. Zach wrote through and said that he got some sort of pyramid. Here we go. See if you can do this one. Describe the image. How did you go? Okay, that was a tough one, but you may get tough ones in the PT like this. Let me give you an example of how I would do it. Here's an answer. This pyramid represents the global wealth proportion of people around the world. As we can see at the top of the pyramid, 0.7% of the population earn more than $1 million. This accounts for over $120 trillion or 45.9% of global wealth. In the next level down, 7.9% of people earn between $100,000 and $1 million, which accounts for over $100 trillion. At the bottom of the period, 70% of people earn less than $10,000, which accounts for 2.7% of global wealth. Okay, I sort of practiced a little bit while you were doing that. So I had more time to do that. But what I did here was, and this is what you need to do in your preparation 25 seconds, is you need to find how this works. So I went from here to here to here. And I just did that again, and again. I missed this one completely because I didn't have time. And then I went 70% of the population earned less than $10,000. This accounts for $7.6 trillion. Anyway, you need to find your pattern in the 25 seconds preparation of how you will go about describing this. If you haven't seen the methods lesson, check it out up here on YouTube. There's like an hour-long webinar and all the different graph types. Of course, on e2language.com, if you want feedback on your speaking, you record it and you send it through to our teachers. They give you feedback on content, pronunciation, and oral fluency, so you know where you're going wrong if you're going wrong. Otherwise, it's just damn good practice. RETELL lecture. What's the task? Sorry, this should say RETELL lecture up the top. My apologies, my formatting error. RETELL lecture. After listening to or watching a lecture, retell the lecture in your own words. You'll listen to the lecture. You'll then have 10 seconds to prepare and then 40 seconds to retell the lecture. Now, for this one, you absolutely need to use your notepad and you need to take notes while you listen to the lecture. If you don't, it's pretty much impossible to say anything about the lecture because you're just relying on memory, and memory ain't that good. So you're scored again on content, pronunciation, and oral fluency. Let's do this one here. 3, 2, 1. Take notes starting now.
I'm going to talk about a new old material that still continues to amaze us, and that might impact the way we think about material science, high technology, and maybe along the way also do some stuff for medicine and for global health and help reforestation. So that's kind of a bold statement. I'll tell you a little bit more. This material actually has some traits that make it seem almost too good to be true. It's sustainable. It's a sustainable material that is processed all in water and at room temperature. And it's biodegradable with a clock, so you can watch it dissolve instantaneously in a glass of water or have it stable for years. It's edible. It's implantable in the human body without causing any immune response. It actually gets reintegrated in the body. And it's technological, so it can do things like microelectronics and maybe photonics do. And the material looks something like this. In fact, this material you see is clear and transparent. The components of this material are just water and protein. So this material is silk. And so it's kind of different from what we're used to thinking about silk. And so the question is, how do you reinvent something that has been around for 5 millennia?
10 seconds. Okie dokie. How did you go with that one? That one, again, requires a framework, a method, lots of practice, and potentially feedback as well. This is probably, one of the hardest speaking ones. Really does depend on your notes. Let me show you my notes. I don't want that to play. Just, how do I pause that? There we go. Just have a look at my notes. I don't know what you wrote, but while I listened to this lecture before, I wrote new material, amazing. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to retell this lecture and use my notes. Hopefully it makes sense. Here we go. The speaker was discussing an amazing new material, which is in fact an old material called silk. I can't remember if it was a he or a she, but he described what's called material science. And he talked about the many benefits of silk, which include its sustainability, its biodegradability. He also mentioned that it's edible, it's implantable, and it's technological. Silk looks clear and is transparent because it's made from water and protein. He said that silk has been around for 5 millennia and suggested it has great benefits. I was probably speaking a little bit quickly then. You need to be careful in the PT about speaking too quickly, because if you get nervous, which is probably pretty likely, you're going to speak quite rapidly. So just be conscious to slow it down a little bit. Just speak at a normal pace, a moderate pace, okay? Okay, answer short question. We've nearly finished the speaking section. Answer short question. What's the task? After listening to a question, answer with a single word or a few words. This is a real test of your vocabulary. You're scored on content, whether you get the answer right or wrong. Pronunciation needs to be clear enough for the computer to understand, and you should try not to hesitate or say and or any other type of non-fluent thing like that. Okay, just realized there's no question there. Bear with me for a minute. This is the beauty of live streaming. Make little errors. Okie dokie. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. What do you call the rules that govern the words of a language? Okie dokie. Let's hear the question and see the question. What do you call the rules that govern the words of a language? The answer is, of course, grammar. I guess syntax is also possible, but grammar is the rules that govern the words of a language. Grammar. If you got grammar right, cool bananas, well done. And that, my friends, is the end of the PTE speaking section. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, that was pretty easy. Well, you'll be surprised at how strict the PT is at grading speaking, really strict. We see a lot of, well, we've seen native English speakers do very poorly on PT speaking. Without practice, without methods, without feedback, it's a pretty tough gig, actually. All right, let's move on to PT writing. Before we do that, let me just check that everybody's still alive and happy. Okay. Okay, fine. Just let me check YouTube Live. 433 people in this live class. Not quite 500, but that's okay. Summarize written text. This is the first writing task of the PTE. It's kind of interesting. What happens is you read a text and then you write a 1-sentence summary. That single sentence summary needs to be a complex sentence, okay? You should aim for about 30 words, 35, 40 words. You can write up to 70 words, but it becomes extremely difficult to control the grammar after about 30 words. So, and you don't get any more points for writing a longer sentence, in fact. But your sentence needs to be complex. What that means is it's not a simple sentence. A simple sentence is just subject, verb, object. The cat ate the dog. That's a simple sentence. One subject, one object, one verb. A complex sentence might say something like, the cat ate the dog, comma, which was weird, something like that. So it's got that extra little half sentence at the end. That's one example of thousands of possible complex sentences you can make. What you want to do with your complex sentence is summarize the main idea in the first part of the sentence and the details in the second part of the sentence. Okay? Easier said than done. You're scored on 4 criteria. Relevance, that you're writing on topic, that you're not writing off topic. You get 0, 1, or 2 points. Structure and length. Well, either you write below, I think it's 5 words, or you write more than 70 words. You just get 0 or 1. You're scored on your grammatical accuracy. If it's perfectly accurate, 2 points. If there's a little error, 1 point. If there's some glaring errors, 0. And your vocabulary needs to be precise. You can take words directly from the text. You should not borrow any phrases, and certainly not any sentences from the text. You have 10 minutes to write your beautiful sentence. Well, you might have to read first. It's a little bit less than 10 minutes, but you get the point. Just going to read out two. One's they're both from YouTube Live. I won't say the names, but let's just say, here's a good one. A young man who underwent surgery and had been complaining of post-operative pain no longer complained of distress after he swam in cold water. Grammatically, well, I've changed it a little bit. Let's just say it's perfect. I think it captures the main idea. Excellent. Here's one that would receive a low score because what this person has done is joined two sentences together with a comma, which you can't do. It needs to be a single sentence, technically a single sentence. The surgical procedure carried out on an old man, first of all, it was a young man, turned out to be a success initially, but later on the pain became worse. To overcome this problem, he started distracting himself by swimming. A few things wrong with this. One, grammatically, it's two sentences, not one. Two, it's missed the point. It's a misinterpretation of the reading. So just be careful. I'm going to show you mine. Mine I wrote in about 30 seconds. So maybe it's not very good. Using a 28-year-old male subject who had undergone an invasive operation, surgeons discovered that swimming in cold water can not only decrease pain, but actually eliminate it. That's 29 words. Actually, that's pretty good. The only key point that I probably missed was that the surgeons were unsure whether this was a cure-all or whether it was just specific to this person, but I had to decide to just leave that out because this was my sentence, okay? That's one example of possibly thousands of correct examples. Okay, next section is write essay. We're going to write a 20-minute essay. I want you to stick around and actually write this. It will just take you 20 minutes. It's really good to do now and not the night before test day, or not especially on test day when you think, uh-oh, how do I write an essay again? I'm in trouble. I'm going to show you a structure afterwards. Let me just tell you what you have to do. You have to write a 200 to 300 word essay on a given topic. It's a persuasive, argumentative essay. It's always a persuasive, argumentative essay. Okay? You have 20 minutes to do this. Here's how you're scored. So you're scored on content from 0, 1, 2, or 3. 3 if you write directly about the question prompt. Do not deviate. Reread that question prompt again and again and again. Even while you're writing the essay, look back up at it. Make sure you're on target. Length, you get 2 points if you write between 200 and 300 words. Structure in terms of introduction, paragraphs, and conclusion, and the internal structure of each paragraph, 2 points if it's logical. Grammar, 2 points if your grammar is accurate. Precision, which means the combination of a vocabulary and grammar, 2 points if it's precise. Vocab, 2 points for precise vocabulary. Spelling, 2 points if you spell everything correctly. Here we go. You have 20 minutes to write a profoundly good essay. Okie dokie. That's about just shy of 20 minutes. How did you go? If you haven't written an essay for a while and you don't know how to structure an essay, which is completely normal, please go up there into the search bar and type in E2 PTE Write Essay. There's a lesson, a video lesson on there that tells you how to structure your introduction, your paragraphs, and your conclusion. I'm just going to quickly run through mine, which is an answer. There are multiple possible answers. Should I read this to you? No. You can pause this in your own time and watch it again when you want. What I'm going to do is just quickly talk to you about the structure of this essay, because there is an internal structure. Yes, there's an overall structure with the 4 paragraphs, but the intro itself has 3 parts, has a broad background sentence, then you rewrite the prompt, then you give your thesis statement and say, this essay will, okay? That's how you write the introduction. If you want to see, there's a video up there about how to do that. Paragraphs have an internal structure as well. Each paragraph contains a single idea. So you have your topic sentence, your opening sentence, you support it with reasons, you give an example or evidence, and then you write a closing sentence which links it back, and the whole thing becomes this nice cyclical structure. The conclusion has 2 parts. You say this essay argued that idea from paragraph 1 and idea from paragraph 2. And then you give your opinion in the final sentence. In my opinion, X. There is a way to write these paragraphs efficiently and logically, and as a result, you will boost your score enormously. Okay. All right, cool. That was the end of writing. Just a reminder to sign up for free to e2language.com if you need any help. And it's probably a good idea to seek help, even if you don't think you need it, just in case. You don't want to sit this test twice. Not only will it be a waste of your money, it'll be a waste of your day. Let's move on to PTE reading. And we're going to look at the first task, which is multiple choice, choose single answer. After reading a text, you answer a multiple choice question on the content or the tone of the text by selecting one response. You should spend about 2 minutes on this. In this particular question, you're tested on your ability to read for the main idea or a specific detail, the purpose or the function of the text, an opinion or the tone of the text, or an inference. The question prompt is particularly important. You have 2 minutes to answer this question. In fact, that should be enough time there. Really, I think 2 minutes is probably too long. I'm going to stop there. I reckon 1.5 minutes, 1 minute and 45 seconds is ample time. The answer to that question we just read is B. What was the Operation Ice Bridge's mission? Its mission was to monitor changes in the elevation of polar ice. Although all of these things were mentioned in the text to some degree or another, it says the mission is to study changes in the height of polar ice. That is the purpose, that was the mission of this technology. If you got B, you can put a smiley face into the chat. Some people chose, a lot of people chose F. And the reason they chose F is because they got distracted. It says the mission, which aims to close the gap between 2 NASA satellite campaigns, that study changes in the height of polar ice. Okay? Good. Plus reunite and close the gap is different in meaning anyway. Multiple choice, choose multiple answers. I personally think this is probably the most difficult reading task. The task is to do this. After reading a text, answer a multiple choice question on the content or tone of the text by selecting more than one response. I'll give you around 2 or 3 minutes for this one. Let's just go through the scoring because it has negative marking. Suppose a question has 4 answer options, A, B, C, and D. Let's say that A and B are the correct answer options. If you select A and B, you'll get 2 points or 100%. If you just select A, you'll get 1 point or 50%, and no points are lost for not selecting B. If you select B, also you'll get 1 point or 50%, and no points are lost for not selecting A. If you select A, B, and C, well, you'll get 2 minus 1 or 1 point. If you select A, B, C, and D, you'll get, well, 2 minus 2 or 0 points. And 0 is the lowest score. You can't go into negative with this. This task tests your ability to read for specific details. All right, that's 3 minutes. You shouldn't spend any more time than that. Just remember, in PTE reading, you manage your own time. For speaking and writing, there's timers and it tells you how long you have. For reading, it just gives you an overall time. So you need to work through the tasks within that time by clicking next, answering the question, clicking next. If you waste time on one, it might eat into the time of the other. The answers are, drumroll, A and E are the correct answers. So which statements about the Matabele ants are true? Well, they risk their lives to find food. And E, they have medicinal properties in their saliva. B, C, D, and F are incorrect, untrue, inaccurate, off topic. I won't go through them. You can do that in your own time. If you got A and E, put a smiley face. If you got one of them, you can put a, I don't know, some other form of face into the chat. Just let me check that everything's cool in the Zoom webinar. 197 people. How many people have we got here? 221. So we got sort of over 400 people. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool. Reorder paragraph. By the way, just before we continue, I've got a little favor to ask. If you're a free user and you're enjoying what we do, you can go to paypal.me/E2language and you can donate a little bit of money, how you feel, to our organization, whether that be $2 or you can even donate in rupees, whatever it is, 100 rupees, fine. I don't even know how much 100 rupees is. You can donate small amounts of money to us as you feel, because it makes us feel good to get donations, yeah? I'd like to get at least one donation before the end of this live mock test. That would be cool. It will pop up on my phone and I will be able to thank you personally. Anyway, you might want to do that. paypal.me/e2language. Reorder paragraph. Several text boxes appear on the screen in a random order. Put the text boxes in the correct order. You have about 2 minutes to do this. You need to read for the independent sentence. That would be the first sentence of the paragraph. You need to read for coherence and the flow of sentences, and the overall paragraph should be logical. Here we go. Okay, that's 2 minutes, and I think that's plenty of time to do reorder paragraph. The answers are B, C, D, E, A. Okay, I don't think that's right. Just let me check. Is that right? No, that's not correct. Hold on. I'm just looking and I'm like, hang on, something's wrong here. What is it? B, C. BCE. Anyway, just let me show you the answers here. That's probably better. Whoopsie. Let me show you the answers here. The answers are this. So it's B, it's C, it's E, then it's D, then it's A. Okay, let me read you through this paragraph. Small lakes with a surface area of less than 100 meters squared represent the majority of global freshwater ecosystems. Many of these lakes are found in remote, often mountainous areas with no inflow and outflow. Yet in most of these lakes, I just have to interrupt that because Aram just donated $2. Thanks, Aram. Appreciate it. That was cool. All right. Many of these lakes are found in remote, often mountainous areas with no inflow and outflow. Yet in most of these lakes, there are fish. So how do fish reach lakes and ponds that are not connected to other bodies of water? This question was already addressed by some of the leading natural scientists of the 19th century, such as Charles Darwin, Alfred Russel Wallace, and Charles Lyell, who all came to the same conclusion. Water birds must be responsible for fish dispersal, and they had a plausible explanation for this. Fish eggs of some species are sticky and can survive for some time out of water. That is the correct answer order there. Please put a smiley face into the chat if you got that correct. Awesome. And thanks again, Aaron. Appreciate it. $2 goes a long way. I can almost buy a coffee with that. It's not about that. It just feels good. Fill in the blanks. The task is a text appears on the screen with several gaps. Drag words from the box below to fill the gaps. You have about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to do this. It should be quick. This tests your vocabulary and especially your understanding and application of collocation. Collocations are natural sounding phrases, phrases that native English speakers use all the time. Combinations of words like adjectives and nouns or verbs and prepositions, for example. Here we go. You have 1.5 minutes to do this one. I think 2 minutes is probably too long. Okay, let's just quickly look at this because there's another little key here. If we look at this gap here, the graduate certificate in commerce, something students, we're looking for a verb. Okay, well, it could be this one. It's not ideal. It's not relevant. It's not thorough. It could be, so we've eliminated the options. Now, the graduate certificate, we know it needs to be a verb with an S on the end. So it's not going to be act and it's not going to be provide. So we have now 2 options to select. If you know your parts of speech, if you can identify word types quickly and go, we need a verb. Okay, it's got to be this type of verb. And then boom, it makes your job a lot, well, not easier, but it increases your chances of success. The answers are equips. The graduate certificate in commerce equips students with a thorough knowledge of the fundamentals of commerce and can act as a stepping stone to the Master of Commerce qualification. This program, is ideal for current managers who do not have a degree but have completed some post-secondary study and have relevant work experience. So the collocations are equips students, thorough knowledge, act as a something, well, that's not really a collocation. 5, relevant work experience. If you got all 5, please put a smiley face into the chat. And we'll move on to the last. Yes, Maharajan just donated $5. Not only can I buy a coffee now because I've got $7, I can almost buy a croissant and a coffee. Thank you very much, Maharajan. I appreciate it enormously. We all do at E2 Language. We work hard. Reading and writing, fill in the blanks, the final reading task of the PTE. The task is this: a text appears on the screen with several gaps. Fill in each gap from a drop-down list of response options. You have about 3 minutes to do this. This task tests your ability to choose the correct word choice. For example, think of the difference in meaning between the word clean and tidy. So if I put them as verbs, as in I cleaned or I tidied, which one is correct in this sentence? I cleaned the papers on my desk or I tidied the papers on my desk. One is more precise, one is slightly imprecise. The best answer here is tidied the papers, because you don't clean papers. That means to wipe them or something. Tidied is the best response. Here we go. You have 3 minutes. Okay. The truth is, with this task here, there really isn't much of a method at all. It really does depend on how broad, and probably more importantly, how deep your vocabulary is. What I mean by that is how many words you know and how well you understand the precise meaning of each of those words. Because each word has, well, a meaning that is distinct from other words. Some words are similar, such as synonyms. They mean similar things, but in many cases, there is one particular word that will do the best job. Let's look at those words here. They are, drum roll, number one is beams, light beams. Of course, rays, glows, and emissions all relate to light, but we're talking about beams of light. Second word here is, the number two is anticlimactic, is the best word here. The other ones are either opposite, such as exciting, or just don't quite work, such as critical and disillusioned. Number three, repelling, attracting and repelling as the opposite of attracting. Number four is merge. That's the best verb. You merge the light into a single stream. And number five is an accomplishment. This task, I think, is pretty tough. If you got 5 correct, you are legendary, absolutely legendary. Cool. We've just finished PTE reading. At this point in the PTE exam, you can go and take a break. You can go to the bathroom, you can go and get some fresh air, have a drink of water, and I suggest you do it because the listening section is intense. This exam is intense. yeah, have a big breakfast before your exam. And if you're good with coffee, drink coffee. If you're not good with coffee, don't drink coffee. Yeah, just be careful about what you eat around exam time too. The night before, maybe it's not a good idea to have that big bowl of chilies, for example. All right, summarize spoken text. The first PTE listening task is this. After listening to a recording, either a lecture or an interview, you write a 50 to 70 word summary. You'll have around 9 minutes to do this. In fact, you have 10 minutes, but the lecture actually takes time away from your writing. So it's around 9 minutes. Here we go. You have 10 minutes. Firstly, listen to this lecture.
So I thought I'd start by talking about, well, how does one
Sorry,
define
I'm going to stop you there. I
behaviours
forgot to tell you. Whoa. I forgot to tell you a really important point. Again, you're going to need to take notes. If you don't take notes for this task, it is, again, virtually impossible. I'm going to rewind that audio. Please have a pen and paper. Take notes while you listen. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
So I thought I'd start by talking about, well, how does one define behaviours of concern in particular and restrictive interventions? What are we talking about in this particular presentation? So to start with, there is no common definition. There's no national consensus on what behaviours of concern mean in educational settings. So that's the first point to note. Different bodies have come up with different sorts of definitions. The first one I want to mention is this from the Victorian Department of Education and Training. It refers to a very broad range of behaviours. Self-injuring behaviour, such as hitting, kicking walls, headbanging, attacking other students or staff, including hitting, biting, kicking, hair pulling, throwing furniture or objects at students and staff, a verbal threat of harm, which you believe a student will immediately enact, or running onto a road or near some other hazard. So that's a very broad sweep of a definition of behaviours of concern.
Okie dokie. That's probably enough time. How did you go writing your summary of between 50 and 70 words based on that lecture? Let's have a look at mine. Maybe you can sort of draw some conclusions about your own from mine. Here's an answer. The speaker was discussing an area of educational psychology regarding dangerous behaviors. She also talked about restrictive interventions as well. She highlighted that there is no common definition for these types of behaviors. She mentioned that one education department had labeled a range of behaviors, including self-injuring, attacking, throwing, verbally threatening, and running. She very seemed. Do you like that? That's nice English, that one there, because it's opposites day. She seemed very unsure about this definition. Now, the reason why it said very seemed and I didn't edit it properly is because I wrote this very quickly. I checked the word count and it was 59 words. Really, and then I went in and I added just the adverb very so I could increase the word count. I think the best word count for this is closer to 70, not 70. Well, you could probably do 70, around 68, 69 words is where you want to end up. And you have plenty of time to do that. So you can write your main body, then you can go back in, add a little phrase here, a couple of words there, a word there, and you can boost it up to closer to 70 words. And don't do what I do what I say. If you're watching this on YouTube live, please subscribe to E2 Language. You can click that subscribe button and you will receive notifications about our live streams whenever we post a video or anything like that. Please, if you're enjoying this, click the like button, comment, and share this with your friends. Multiple choice, choose multiple answers. The task is to do this. After listening to a recorded recording, answer a multiple choice question on the content or tone by selecting more than one response. The same scoring applies to this task as it does for reading, okay? So you can select one and be safe. You can select two, of course. There will always be at least two answers, or you could go ahead and select three. Let's do this one here. You have 7 seconds to read the question prompt. I also suggest that you take notes, by the way. I don't think you can do this just listening. Take notes and listen, then match your notes to the correct answer options.
I love contemporary art, but I'm often really frustrated with the contemporary art world and the contemporary art scene. And I was longing for several things that I wasn't getting or not getting enough of. But two of the main things, one of it, I was longing for more work that was appealing to a broad public, that was accessible. And the second thing that I was longing for was more exquisite craftsmanship and technique. So I decided I'm going to start my own biennial. I'm going to organize it and direct it and get it going in the world. So I thought, okay, I have to have some criteria of how to choose work. So amongst all the criteria I have, there's kind of two main things. One of them I call my MEMAS test. And what that is I imagine explaining a work of art to my grandmother in 5 minutes. And if I can't explain it in 5 minutes, then it's too obtuse or esoteric, and it hasn't been refined enough yet. It needs to be worked on until it can speak fluently. And then my other second set of rules, I hate to say rules because it's art, or my criteria would be the 3 H's, which is head, heart, and hand. And great art would have head, it would have interesting intellectual ideas and concepts. It would have heart in that it would have passion and heart and soul. And it would have hand in that it would be greatly crafted.
You now have 30 seconds to match your notes to the correct answer option. Options, rather. Okay. How did you go? Is that enough time? I'm not quite sure whether that was enough time. Okay. All right. Hopefully that was enough time. Anyway, let's go through the answer options. The answers rather. The answers are, which criteria does the speaker mention? So he mentions that he's going to create a magazine, a biennial. Is that what he called it? Something like that. And he mentioned that in this magazine that he was going to create, he needed to be able to easily explain the artwork to his grandmother, so his grandmother could get it. That was B. That was one of the criteria. The second one was that the artwork must be, he used different synonyms, but it needed to have head, heart, and soul, I believe, something like that. So the artwork must be interesting, heartfelt, and well-crafted. They were the two criteria that he mentioned. If you got B and C, well done, because that was not particularly easy. This task is particularly challenging, and I suggest taking notes for it. This one's less challenging. The task is to read a transcript of a recording appears on the screen with several gaps. After listening to the recording, type the missing word in each of the gap. In each gap. I'm starting to lose my mind. I'm hungry. Let's move on. Right, let's listen to the audio. I say you note down on a piece of paper 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then get the spelling and the grammar right upon the second go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
I grew up with my identical twin, who was an incredibly loving brother. Now, one thing about being a twin is it makes you an expert at spotting favoritism. If his cookie was even slightly bigger than my cookie, I had questions. And clearly, I wasn't starving. When I became a psychologist, I began to notice favoritism of a different kind. And that is how much more we value the body than we do the mind. I spent 9 years at university earning my doctorate in psychology, and I can't tell you how many people look at my business card and say, "Oh, a psychologist, so not a real doctor." As if it should say that on my card.
Give you a bit of time to make sure you've got the right grammar and spelling in each of the gaps, that each word is correct in context as well. In other words, double check. I'll just give you 10 more seconds. All right, you should have the answers by now. The answers are incredibly, spotting, double T. If you had one T, it would be incorrect. Starving, doctorate. They were the correct answers. Just let me check that this is the same thing. Yes, it's all good. How did you go? Out of 4, please tell me what you got in the chat. I'll be curious. And let's move on to highlight correct summary. The task is, after listening to a recording, select the paragraph that best summarizes the recording. After listening to the, again, this one you, again, need to take notes. You can't do this one because the answer options are too long, and you can't listen and read at the same time because you can't listen and read at the same time. So you need to listen and take notes because you can do that at the same time, then match your notes to the best answer option, the best summary. Now, the summaries you're about to see are probably a little bit too short. In the real exam, they're more like 2 or 3 sentences. Anyway, this is still good practice. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
A few years ago, I found myself looking for the most cost-effective way to be stylish. So naturally, I wound up at my local thrift store, a wonderland of other people's trash that was ripe to be plucked to become my treasure. Now, I wasn't just looking for your average off the secondhand rack vintage t-shirt to wear. For me, real style lives at the intersection of design and individuality. So to make sure that I was getting the most out of the things that I was finding, I bought a sewing machine so I could tailor the 90s style garments that I was finding to fit a more contemporary aesthetic. I've been tailoring and making my own clothes from scratch ever since, so everything in my closet is uniquely my own. But as I was sorting through the endless racks of clothes at these thrift stores, I started to ask myself, what happens to all the clothes that I don't buy? The stuff that isn't really cool or trendy, but kind of just sits there and rots away at these secondhand stores. I work in the fashion industry on the wholesale side, and I started to see some of the products that we sell end up on the racks of these thrift stores. So the question started to work its way into my work life as well. I did some research, and I pretty quickly found a very scary supply chain that led me to some pretty troubling realities. It turned out that the clothes that I was sorting through at these thrift stores represented only a small fraction of the total amount of garments that we dispose of each year. In the US, only 15% of the total textile and garment waste that's generated each year ends up being donated or recycled in some way, which means that the other 85% of textile and garment waste end up in landfills every year.
Give you 1 minute. All right, you should have selected the correct answer by now. Just before we move on, thank you very much, Jaya Sankar, for that $2. I now have $9. I'm going to fill up at the cafe. All right, the answer is C. And I don't know why I put the timer there. There you go. The answer is C. Staggeringly high amounts of clothing end up in landfill, and this far outweighs the amount of clothing given to charity. This is the best summary of the audio recording. Right, we're getting there, guys. Nearly there. Multiple choice, choose single answer. I think there's 3 more to go, okay? This task, you get the idea. You listen to a recording, you have to choose one answer option. Should take you, after you listen to the audio recording, you should only spend about 30 seconds selecting the right answer. Let's do it.
I'm actually here to make a challenge to people. I know there have been many challenges made to people. The one I'm going to make is that it is time for us to reclaim what peace really means. Peace is not kumbaya, my Lord. Peace is not the dove and the rainbow, as lovely as they are. When I see the symbols of the rainbow and the dove, I think of personal serenity. I think of meditation. I do not think about what I consider to be peace, which is sustainable peace with justice and equality. It is a sustainable peace in which the majority of people on this planet have access to enough resources to live dignified lives.
In fact, that's probably enough time to select the right answer because the answer options are quite short. The answer to this one is D. The speaker believes that Detroiters are set to revolutionize access to good food. That is what this talk was about. All right. Sorry. I may have given you the wrong audio. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm seeing a WTH in there. Forget that one. My mistake. I gave you the wrong audio. I apologize. Damn, it was a good question too. Let's move on. You can imagine what multiple choice choose single answer is like anyway. Select missing word. This is a different one. The task is this. After listening to a recording, select the missing word that completes the recording from a list of options. The recording will go for about 30 seconds. what's going to happen is the last word or the last words will be missing. So you need to anticipate what the speaker is going to say from the context of what he or she said. This is a pretty interesting one. Here we go. Hopefully I've got the right audio for this one. You'll soon tell me if I haven't. 3, 2, 1.
Let me tell you a story. Goes back 200 million years. It's the story of the neocortex, which means new rind. So in these early mammals, because only mammals have a neocortex, rodent-like creatures, it was the size of a postage stamp and just as thin, and was a thin covering around their walnut-sized brain. But it was capable of a new type of thinking. Rather than the fixed behaviors that non-mammalian animals have, it could invent new behaviors. So a mouse is escaping a predator, its path is blocked, it'll try to invent a new solution. That may work, it may not, but if it does, it'll remember that and have a new behavior. And that could actually spread virally through the rest of the community. Another mouse watching this could say, hey, that was pretty clever going around that rock. And it could adopt a new behavior.
All right, you should have selected the right answer by now. I'm guessing that this is the right audio. The answer to this one is, in fact, C as well. If I remember correctly, he's talking about rats and how they learn from each other's behavior. And so one rat saw the rock and went round the rock, and the other one did as well. It wasn't for real, it wasn't more easily, it wasn't quick smart, and it wasn't more efficiently. It was that one rat copied another rat. So as well is the correct answer there. If you got C, well done. That was a tricky one. Highlight incorrect words, the second last task in PTE listening. Now, just before we move on, with PTE listening, like with PTE reading, you need to manage your own time. What we've found here at E2 Language in dealing with thousands of PTE candidates is if you waste time in listening and you don't get to the end of the entire test, and especially if you don't do the next task, which is write from dictation, it significantly affects not only your listening, but it also affects your writing scores, because all the tasks, not all the tasks, some of the tasks are interconnected. In other words, and to put it simply, what you need to do is move efficiently through each of these listening tasks. As soon as you've finished that lecture, selected your answer, click next, because it's more important to get to the end of the exam and finish the write from dictation than to stick around on particular questions. In highlight incorrect words, there'll be a transcript of a recording that will appear on the screen. While listening to the recording, identify the words in the transcript that differ from what is said. Let me explain what I mean here. I've given you a huge transcript, by the way, because I think this task is too easy. So what's going to happen is you're going to listen to the lecture. There will be a few words on the screen that will be different from what the speaker says. You need to, in the actual exam, you need to take your mouse and move your mouse as the speaker talks, and you need to click on words that differ from the audio. Of course, we can't click on the screen, so what I want you to do is to use your reflexes. I just want you to pretend and put your finger there and read. When you hear something that contradicts what you're seeing, tap your finger. Okay, imagine you click on it. And just count on the other hand how many you tap, and we'll see what the answers are in a second. Here we go, in 3, 2, 1.
In our solar system, we have a ring of asteroids orbiting the Sun. It lies between the 4 inner small rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars, and the 4 outer giant gas planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Most people have heard mention of this asteroid belt. It took a while for our telescope technology to get good enough, but on January 1, 1801, an asteroid was discovered in this belt. It was also the largest ever discovered, about 930 kilometres across. Of course, the smaller asteroids took longer to discover because they were harder to see. As the astronomers discovered tens, then hundreds, and finally thousands of asteroids, the name asteroid belt gradually evolved. The asteroid belt has about 1 million rocks bigger than a kilometre across, and about 250 of these are larger than 100 kilometres. If you go really small, there are many millions more rocks just a few metres across. Even so, the total mass of all the asteroids is about 1,000 times smaller than the mass of the Earth.
Okie dokie, how did you go? The words that you should have clicked your mouse button on as you listen to the recording are, the word binocular is wrong. Just let me see if I've got this right. Yes, cool. So if you clicked on binocular, that was different to what the speaker said. The speaker said telescope. If you clicked on smaller, that's different to what the speaker said. The speaker said harder. Finally, he said gradually, and size was incorrect. He said mass. So if you got all 4 of those, well done. Usually the texts, by the way, in the real exam will be smaller than this. I really don't think this is a difficult task to do in the PTE. Not many people have issues with this. And ladies and gentlemen, we move to the final task of PTE listening, the final task of the entire PTE. You're about to retire from PTE-dom. The task is, I've chopped off the A. There you go. FD, FD. After listening to a recording of a sentence, type the sentence. You should only be spending really 10, 20 seconds on each of these. You need to get to the end of the exam. Here we go. You're going to listen to a single sentence. I want you to listen first, then write. Don't listen and write. Listen, absorb the sentence, and then write it down. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to write it down. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
In the developed world, everywhere, women live an average of 6 to 8 years longer than men do.
The answer is this. You have to demonstrate one of the following in order to meet our English language proficiency requirements. This should also have a full stop in the end. I'm not entirely sure if you need correct punctuation, but better to be safe than sorry. So do put a full stop and a capital letter. You have to meet one of the following in order to meet our English language proficiency requirements. Now this is partial marking. So let's say you forgot this little word here and it just said English language requirements. Let's say that was 9 out of 10, so you would get 90% or a partial score like that, okay? I've already talked about this. I think that's all. Oh, if you need help, if you have any questions, if you want us to analyze your report cards, you can go to, oopsie, that's a H, H-E-L-P, help.e2language.com. This is our help desk. You can send a question through. We will answer your question. We can help you decide whether the PT is the right test for you or whether you should be taking IELTS or OET or TOEFL, for example. We can analyze your previous score reports and give you a recommendation on the best package for you, when you should be taking your next test. Any questions you have, we are the people you should be talking to. That's all. That's the end. Uh-oh. I think I did the wrong audio again. Started well, this one, and it went terribly downhill from there. Anyway, that's what happens when you do a marathon webinar. If you want good practice materials that actually write, go to e2language.com. There you go. There you can practice there. Anyway, any questions? I'm happy to hang around and answer some questions for you. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so I've just opened up the chat on the Zoom webinar, so you can ask, you can put in your questions now. I'll start in the Zoom webinar and then I'll move to YouTube Live. Shivana, thank you, Jay. No problem. How to improve summarize spoken text and retell lecture? They use the same method, in fact. So practicing one is like practicing the other. It's the same framework. I suggest watch the methods lessons, do the practice, get the feedback. That's all you, that's it. Methods, practice, feedback. Methods, practice, feedback. What's the best position of the microphone while speaking? Put it to the side of your mouth like you do your telephone, not directly in front of your mouth. Jay, can you please let us know if we should add a space after a full stop after every sentence in essay? In the essay, you just put a gap between your paragraphs, okay? And yes, if you put a full stop, you need to put a space. Yay, somebody donated $2. I'm now up to $11. This is great. It's almost heading towards a dinner. Jay, I wrote my question in the Q&A part. Please write in the chat. Is highlight correct words, incorrect words negatively marked? Yes, it is. So you need to be careful which words you click on. Is it necessary to write around 290 words in order to get a higher score in writing? In the essay, you have 20 minutes to write between 200 and 300. Look, it won't hurt if you wrote about 250, okay? Let's just say that. I don't think there's a, you know, the more words you write, the higher your score will be, because it's also the more words you write, the greater the risk of a grammatical mistake is. But yeah, 250 words would be nice, I guess. How to improve describe image? Method, practice, feedback. Please give tips on missing word in listening task. Methods, practice. I had a question for summarized written text. Can we not write one sentence with a comma? A complex sentence would generally have a comma. Generally, there's many, many different ways to write a complex sentence, some of which would require a comma, some of which do not require a comma, okay? Jay, how do we get feedback? Well, if you're an E2 language member, you write your essay in the assessment part, you submit it through the website, 48 hours later, you receive feedback from the teacher, including detailed description of what you did right, what you did wrong, and we give you an estimated score. Hi, Jay, I emailed you my scorecard, waiting on your response. I'm sorry, Shaftar, can you please email to help.e2language.com? I have 7,000 emails in my inbox. Help.e2language.com. Please don't email me. I just take too long to get back to you. Jay, in the reading and listening part after finishing, can we get back? No, you can only move forward in the PT. You can't go backwards. In summarized spoken text, in one sentence, can we begin by putting a comma and start the sentence with but? There's, I don't know, many different ways to do this. In the speaking exam, how do we avoid the other's noise? You can't. It's like speaking on a noisy train, okay? There's people around you talking. You have to just concentrate on what you're listening to and what you're saying. Yes, you're going to hear other people talking. Somebody's trying to call me. Can we speak for 30 seconds in RETELL lecture? In RETELL lecture and describe image, you should aim for about 35 seconds, okay? That's sort of the ideal range. As long as you stop before 40. 35 seconds is great. Jay, can you please provide the link to donate? With pleasure. Hold on. With pleasure. That, my friends, is the link to donate money to E2 language, of which I might get a small commission. PayPal.me/E2 language. It's more just like, it's just kind of meaningful when people show their appreciation. Will the PT overwrite a previous PT score or take the highest score? Yes. It just takes it doesn't matter what you scored in the past. If you take it again and get a higher score, you go with that one, okay? Jay, I fell short of time in the reading section. Any suggestions to improve the reading speed? I I think the methods help you the most. Once you understand the methods and you've done the practice, then on test day, it's just more efficient, okay? Jay, according to your experience, is reading the most difficult section of the PTE? I think reading is definitely I think speaking and reading. Abu Bakar, what do we do if the time is up and I didn't finish speaking yet? It will just cut your sentence off. So you need to finish before the time is up. I had answered that one. Can we write down any on the paper before we start the test? Listen, if you practice the methods properly and you do, if you learn the methods properly and you practice the methods, you won't need to write anything down. Take the methods in, you smuggle them in your brain. It's the best way to cheat. Jay, should we add a space after a call? Yes. Jay, your writing tips are a bit different in YouTube, 1 minute and then the other. Would you please explain about it? Okay, there's 2 methods lessons for the essay. One of them has a different conclusion where the sentences are rearranged. Either order is fine. Somebody said you should wear a woolen cap to cover your ears to avoid the noise of other people. Jay, I think if we could start writing spontaneously, then I think I can write more words in Write from Dictation section. Is that okay? Mohammed, you should try it. Try to listen and write at the same time. It's really tough. Listen, then write seems to be the best method, but it might be different for you. Jay, I'm struggling with remembering audios and taking notes. Practice taking notes. You need to, note-taking is the forgotten secret of the PTE, if you like. It's, yeah. I want to ask, during the exam, should I use a character or numbers? Oh, okay. Should I write the number 6 as a numeral or should I write the word 6? You should write the word, not the number. Unless it's anything over 10, 11, 12, 13, you can write the number. Anything below 10 and below, write the word. That's the rule. Any recommended source to deepen vocabulary knowledge? Should start with the word lists on e2language.com, which you can download for free. They will raise your awareness of vocabulary. Then you should read scientific articles and start to pay attention to new vocabulary. I'm a free member. Can I still get feedback on my essay? No. Sorry. Jay, I took the test this week and my results were listening 80, writing 81, reading 76 and speaking 69. I'm sorry. Yeah, the room's noisy. There's not much you can do. It's just the nature of the test. Concentration is such a critical part of this test. What's the most difficult part of the exam according to you? Describe image, retell lecture, reading multiple choice, multiple answers, listening multiple choice, multiple answers. Those 4 for me are the most difficult. How do we summarize written text with 2 sentences with however and a semicolon mentioned? Technically you can. I've never tried it. I've never tested it. I don't know if the PTE computer accepts it, so I would not do it. I would just write a complex sentence and avoid using semicolons in summarized written text. Jay, what are the questions that have negative scoring? Reading multiple choice, multiple answers, listening multiple choice, multiple answers, and listening highlight incorrect words. Those 3. How to adjust breathing and read aloud? It's an interesting question. I've never really even thought about breathing and read aloud. Well, you have pausing at full stops, and I suspect that's where you take a quick breath. Okay, Jay, when practicing the speaking section on my laptop, do I need to get a separate microphone? If you're going to take the mock test at ptepractice.com, which we recommend because it's an excellent resource, you should use a microphone. You can either use one of these ones, which are probably a bit expensive, or you can just use your headphones from your phone. You'll get, if you use your computer audio for the mock test, you'll get a low speaking score because it doesn't record properly. Jay, what's a good source for essay writing? If you go to our blog, blog.e2language.com, there's sample PTE essays up there, actually, blog.e2language.com. Just go to e2language.com, click blog. You'll see PTE sample essays. Jay, how many essays do we get in the PTE? And do these come one after the other? It depends. There are 3 possible variations. You might get 1 summarized written text, 2 I'm making this up now, I don't know. It is possible to get 2 essays in the PTE. More like, 3 possible writing combinations with different numbers of summarized written text and write essay. Jay, how do I do reorder paragraph? Methods, practice. Feedback in the tutorials would be good too. Alice, how long should we take after we take an exam before we take our next exam? Please send a message to help.e2language.com. Send us your score report. We'll review it. Tell us what score you need, and we'll tell you how long you should take. Jay, in the reorder. Okay, what's the scoring for reorder paragraphs? So you've got 5 sentences here, and then let's say you put them into correct order. You get 100%. Let's say this one and this one are in the wrong order, so you've mixed them up. That means you'll get 3 out of 5, or 80% for your mark. Any idea if the actual PTE exam will be as tough as the version on the ptepractice.com? Personally, I think ptepractice.com is slightly more difficult. I'm struggling in speaking. I will take my test next week. I'm not ready yet. Well, you can spend $69 with us and go through all the methods and the practice and listen to all the samples and greatly improve your chances of success. Or you can just go and take your test and have less chance of success. It's up to you. Preparation in many ways is actually an investment, I think. Could you please give me a strong tips to speak like a native speaker? Well, there's a lesson up here on YouTube, which is the 44 sounds of English. Type in E2 read aloud. And I go through all 44 sounds in English, the phonemes, and you can practice saying those. Jay, I love you from the core of my heart, and I'm loving to see you when you speak and pronounce so accurately, and I feel like English is my first language. Cheers, mate, for everything. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. For summarized spoken text. Okay, I'm studying. I have my exam on Monday. Says Floor. Sadeg, please send your results through to help.e2language. Jay, which of the questions having negative scoring? I've already answered that. I think I'm going to go. That was 2 hours. Thanks very much for coming along. Hope it was helpful. If you do need help, you know where to go. I'm sorry about those audio recordings. I'll get it right the next time. If you're watching this on YouTube Live, go to the website and sign up for the live class so I can answer your questions in the Zoom webinar. Okay? I'll see you guys soon.